Hey y'all, it's Nikki. I have to tell you about Tecovas boots. I finally have a pair, and they are handmade, high quality, stylish, comfortable, and I even got them customized with leather stamping. So go get yours at the Tecovas flagship on South Congress or their store at the Domain. Plus, good news, Tecovas is opening a brand new store for your Western wear needs on Main Street in Georgetown. Swing by for their grand opening party September 27th through 29th for live music and freebies for the first 50 of y'all to get there. So come shop with me at Tecovas. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all. Today on CityCast Austin, we recently had an episode on dating, and I decided it just was not gay enough. We talked about how the city is changing and it being a tough place to date. Y'all, the LGBTQ plus community is no exception, and it's about to be snuggle season. So we are here with Mace Kerwick, who has seen it all, for some advice. CityCast Austin is brought to you by our exclusive launch sponsor, Tecovas. It's Thursday, September 19th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I'm here today with Mace Kerwick, a multidisciplinary storyteller. Hi, Mace, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you doing?
I am great. We are going to be talking today about dating, and I'm super excited. Austin has a huge concentration of LGBTQ plus people. We've gotten a straight perspective about dating in Austin. Now I wanted to have a way more queer conversation about dating in Austin. So,
hell yeah.
Off top, what's your dating experience in Austin?
Oh, wow. So I am a native Austinite. I grew up here and I moved away for 5 years for college and my first job. And I moved back when I was 23. And that was 9 years ago. And I've gone on so very many first dates in that time period. And I've had a number of relationships, a number of situationships, flings, hookups, whatever you want to call it.
All of that.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. I have been there and I've done it in the 512.
What do you do? Let's tell everybody what you do.
What do I do? So I think that's a great question because that has definitely informed my dating experience. So I am an independent filmmaker. I'm a comedian. And then I also produce branded content for a living. And between those three buckets of my time, I have a kind of irregular work schedule. Like some weeks, yeah, I'm working, kind of a standard 9 to 5 thing. But other times, I'm on set for like 12 to 14 hours a day. And then I'm racing off to do a live Queer Town show or, some other variety show around town. Because in addition to performing comedy, I'm also a singer. So all that is to say that like my availability is kind of atypical. And I found that Austin can be like a decent city for that kind of thing. But it's definitely, had interesting implications with like who I'm going on dates with.
Don't get me wrong. I love my partner. She is a sweet baby angel. Everybody knows that. I say it all the time. But I love being single. And I feel like Austin is a place where when you're queer, it's like a Candyland a little bit.
And we are all Queen Frostine moving through Candyland and enjoying the delightful adventures that come along the way. I mean, it really is a special city to be single in. And I have really appreciated the people that I've been able to meet along the way. And sure, there's been, a cast of characters that I don't need to meet again. But I think that's, par for the course with anything.
So what do Austinites, you think, what do queer Austinites need the most help with when it comes to dating?
Well, I think there's a few generalizations that I feel comfortable making. But before I kind of dive into those, I do want to contextualize that it's really nuanced these days. And I think that if you are someone who is looking at dating and you sort of want that Nancy Meyers or Nora Ephron style relationship, I think Austin might be a little tricky in that regard because I don't think that people in the queer community here are necessarily dating with clean cut expectations. I think that there's a fascinating element of, the academic side of Austin, the tech side of Austin, the creative DIY scene, where it really feels like, to me, in this moment in 2024, there's a lot of queer and trans people who are kind of creating their own rules with how they want to date.
Yeah.
And I see that as being really beautiful and really nurturing and indicative of a more positive association with things. But if you're just approaching dating in Austin from like, I am looking to match with someone on a dating app and go on a few dates and enter into a sort of standard set of rules of how monogamy and consistency and values are going to be created and shared, I think you might be up for a really intense struggle bus.
I know a lot of people that are poly. I know a lot of people that are open. I know a lot of people that have more than monogamous relationships. And I'm a new queer. I'm an old bitch, but I'm a new queer, right? So there's a whole host of options that I just think that, people maybe specifically in my age bracket just didn't have when they were first coming out. There's all this language and all this vocabulary and all these ways on the spectrum that you could meet people and have relationships and connections with people. Do you have any tips on how to be more successful about just getting out and getting out on dates, what to be open to?
I think everyone, whether you're queer or straight and you live in Texas, and like me, you grew up going to Texas public schools, you're probably approaching love, sex, and intimacy with some of the worst sex education curriculum that exists nationwide. I mean, we all grow up with shame-based education.
Shame and abstinence. That's it.
Shame and abstinence. Somehow the powers that be think that this is the best way. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's awful. And there was so much mental garbage that I had to work through. And I think that's the reality of most people who are out there who are actively pursuing love, sex, intimacy, whatever it is that they want. And it's hard because some of us, like you're saying, are figuring things out in real time. And I don't think that there's a lot of grace that is given to other people. And especially with, some of the people out there who are sort of using this as Favor or Uber or something.
Oh,
it's like they are just trying to order something. I wish that is how life could work. But alas, if you, want to go on a date with someone, approach it that way. If you're just looking for sex, maybe hire a sex worker or maybe find someone who's down to clown right away. But I think that's probably been one of the trickier elements, particularly as someone who is a guy and dates other guys, is sort of navigating the differentiation in goals, if you will.
I love the breakdown of love, sex, or intimacy. You know exactly what you're looking for. You know exactly what you're not going to accept. You know what I mean? You won't find yourself in these positions where you're like, how did I end up here?
And that will still happen. You will still fall down the wrong rabbit hole. Okay, let me tell you. I was on a first date recently. And well, actually, I wasn't on the first date because this guy just wasn't showing up. And he finally messages me and he's like, hey, I don't have a car and my Uber is just taking forever. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I order a drink and we were at the Grand. So, the pool hall. Mm-hmm. And he finally shows up and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. But I didn't bring my wallet with me.
No.
I'm like, okay, that's okay. I have a tab. It's open at the bar. You can go order a drink. And then he spent the next hour just talking about himself.
I love that there are certain things that are just the same, regardless of gender, regardless of everything. I feel like so many of us have been on that date where it's just like, okay, well, you've been talking for 45 minutes about yourself and have not asked me anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. So,
and I'd like to think that, you know, I bring at least one good story to the table, right? Like I should be given the opportunity to share
exactly.
that.
I'm ready to come out with I'm on my best behavior. So I'm curious. Now, I have a theory. A lot of people disagree with me. I feel like it's always been kind of awkward out there, but it got worse after COVID.
Totally. Yeah. I think that there was a really interesting thing that happened in 2020 where so much of our day-to-day lives we were able to reassess. And I think that Austin as a place tends to attract people who are mid-adventure, right? You have people who are coming here for grad school. You have people who are coming here for like a big, exciting new job.
Yeah.
You have other people who are avoiding things. And I think that over the last 4 years, I've seen a lot more chaotic
Yeah.
kinds of energies on dates.
Yeah.
And I haven't fully wrapped my head around why that is, because I don't know, maybe it's happening everywhere, but I live here, right? So I can speak to this. And I definitely feel like for a lot of people within the queer and trans community, we've been in a state of crisis for the last 4 years. And, you know, obviously the powers that be within the state of Texas government, within the US government, I think that people are really going through stuff. And the conversations that can pop up on a date sometimes touch upon things that I don't really think a lot of people are talking about outside of those dates. Right? Like it might touch upon, you know, really personal political beliefs or religious beliefs or things that, you know, we're just sort of out of practice with sharing with people because, you know, meetings are over Zoom or work happy hours are kind of superficial, fluffy things. And so suddenly you have like a second date and it becomes this avenue for conversation that you haven't really tested out with anyone else. And I feel like, yeah, oof, it's been rough.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many people right now who are very lonely, who are very isolated, and it's really difficult to find and sustain friendships, let alone queer community within Austin. And I think for so many people, dating apps are avenues into outside connections. And I think, I don't know, at least for me, I've found there to be a certain sense of intrigue in that, right? Like I can, you know, meet up for someone and truly it's the, you know, we'll see what happens. Maybe something physical develops, but maybe it's just a really fun, compatible friendship. And then I get to meet their friends and I'm invited to drag race watch parties and so on and so forth. But yeah, you do kind of have to do like the vetting in a way to be like, okay, if I am to, you know, be in your orbit and become friends with your friends, like, am I going to laugh at their jokes? Am I going to, you know, feel okay to, you know, talk about a political issue that I'm fired up about and, you know, need to air some feelings about that evening?
So do you have any advice on how to get back into practice or even like, how did you get back into practice of just being out there?
That's a great question, Nikki. That is a great question. So in 2020, I was actively dating two different people when March rolled around and the world changed. And one of them promptly broke up with me. And that was rough. The other one, we continued dating, I think through like July or August of that year. And there were a lot of big thoughts that I had, just like everyone else at that point. And I ended up breaking up with that guy. And then I entered into like a series of like 6-week long, like really like fast and fiery relationships with very different people. And I think that kind of like sustained me for the next like year or so. And it was very interesting. It felt like I was the star of a TV show, even though this is my life. We were talking about these are like very real things. And then it was like, okay, I need to like slow down. I need to like reevaluate. And a really good friend of mine ended up letting me know about a pleasure course that she was teaching online through WashU in St. Louis, where she was getting a master's in social work. And I ended up taking that class. And that really, I think, changed the game for me as far as what I was wanting to achieve out of dating. I don't think I ever really went into anything with a lot of coherent goals or even clarity about what I wanted out of something. And it was this 8-week long class where we met once a week and we talked about various aspects of sex or physical wellness or ways of demystifying these things that are very complicated, but we've just never been given the vocabulary to actively describe them.
That sounds incredible.
It truly was one of the best things I've ever done. And the fact that it was only 8 weeks and was that much of a recalibration tool. One of the things that we talked about was this exercise called a pleasure roadmap. And the idea is that a lot of us, when we think about sex, we think about like penetrative sex, right? And so this is sort of exercise where you get a sheet of paper and you start thinking about how you like to be turned on. And it could even be as simple as, I like the lights to be kind of lower. I like for music to be playing. I like for, maybe incense or like a really fun candle to be burning in the background. And it's all of these ways that you're sort of grounding yourself in your own body, so that you're not just overthinking or, rushing forward through things. And the idea is that I think this was designed for couples who had been in relationships for a long time and that they could kind of outline their roadmaps and figure out how they could get them to intersect with each other. But I've found that it's actually very beneficial when, meeting up with someone new and figuring out that we do have this like really electric physical connection. We want to explore that. And it's so much more substantial than like, are you a top or a bottom reverse?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like everyone should at least, do some research, read a book, do something that can help you push your own boundaries. Because I think that, our bodies change as we get older. And obviously, like, talk to any trans person, they'll be the first person to like say, yes, I get that completely. But anyone, regardless of who you are, your body is not the same as it was a decade ago, and it will not be the same a decade from now. And we owe it to ourselves to be curious about things and to be open to change. And I don't know, like there's a lot of medical issues that we are all going to navigate over the course of our lives. And I would certainly hope that, whatever unknown thing I'm undoubtedly going to be stepping through at some point in time, I'm with someone who can at least hold my hand and be like, okay, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm here with you.
Right. And oh my God, to this point, this is so interesting because as I've gotten older, I've also noticed that like my taste has changed.
Mm-hmm.
My taste and what like my attraction, who I'm attracted to has really changed as I've gotten older, which was, I don't know if I'm naive, but it was a huge surprise to me. How much
Really?
It was like I had to adjust and I had to give myself time to adjust to this new body that I was like attracted to and wanted. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun getting to know that new part of myself.
Yeah, I think I can echo your sentiment of a few years ago. I felt a broadening of my dating pool, and it was really cool, but also kind of scary. And it felt like there were aspects of who I saw myself as that I was suddenly second guessing.
Right.
And I really don't know if that could have happened anywhere but Austin, Texas. I went to college in the Midwest, and I think that if I had stayed up there, I had a job out of Chicago for a year. And if I were in Chicago or anywhere else in the Midwest, I don't know, I might be married at this point. I might be in a monogamous relationship.
Wow.
And it took a while, right? It's been 9 years since I moved back. And it was 5 years into that when I was in, actively exploring polyamory. But even to myself, I had to like tiptoe up to certain realizations. And I think it helps that so many of my friends, that so many people I know in Austin are asking themselves the same questions. And I really, quite honestly, think it's cool that we're coming to different answers and we're still able to come back to these conversations and support one another through whatever decisions we're discovering are right for ourselves.
I agree. I think Austin is special. I think specifically our queer community. So you've lived other places. Is there a stark difference between like dating in Austin and dating other places?
For me, yes. And I think part of that is because at this point in time, I'm really enmeshed within the queer community. I mean, I've been hosting Queertown now for 7 years. And when I get on an app, it doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while, someone will say, "Oh, I've listened to your show. I've seen you before." It's always very funny to me whenever someone like recognizes me, but they're like, "Yeah, I can't remember like where I saw you, but like I know I saw you."
It's a very weird place to be. It's like when you just like it's like just enough people, and especially since you were born here, when you're a native Austinite, it adds on this other layer of like, even though you were gone for a while, it doesn't matter. It adds on this other layer of like, yeah, man, I've been here for a while. There's a possibility we've run into each other at some point.
I recently got back on Grindr. I feel like that's one of the ways that I like keep things interesting is I'll like rotate whatever app I'm on. And lately it's been Grindr. And the thing that I like about Grindr is that you can really just kind of like throw any kind of information out there. And, sometimes it's like gross and weird, but other times it's like genuinely fascinating stuff. And there was someone who I guess I went to middle school with, and he messaged me and said, "Hey, you used to host the morning announcements at Murchison Middle School."
Oh my God.
With a girl named Brooke. And I saw that and was like, I don't need this right now, but thank you so much for making that connection.
I cannot, but hello, good to see you.
Like, I'm 32. That was literally 20 years ago. I'm so glad that whatever memory stuck with you. I need an in-between between like the person who doesn't remember my comedy show and the person who does remember me hosting the middle school announcements.
That can't be all that there is. There has to be some middle. Last night, we had a long conversation about Grindr because I am fascinated. I'm fascinated by Grindr.
Oh, it is.
It's like the Wild West.
Yes.
Yeah. So on Grindr, my friend will show me a picture of a headless body and say, this person is 3 feet away or like 6 feet. They're in this range, but I don't know how it works on the app. It's like a grid. Is that right?
Yeah. So you have a grid when you log into it, and you can customize your profile. You can do, age, height, weight, sexual position. You can do what you're looking for. You can do what you're interested in. And all of that kind of creates data that other people can then factor in when they're trying to customize who's popping up in their grid. And I think the stereotype is definitely headless torsos, but less so now in Austin.
Good.
I think that we're like moving. I mean, it's still very sex positive. It's still very, hookup oriented, but Grindr is very fascinating to me with how it's evolved, because when I first got on Grindr, it was probably like 2011, 2012 when I was going to the University of Missouri. And that was truly like nightmare fuel. That was like someone like the 9th profile away from me is like someone who's like 75 miles away. And it was like just like a black hole of a profile. And
oh my God.
They'd be like, like tapping and messaging and all sorts of things. And it's like, I am not driving 75 miles to meet up with you. I am so sorry.
Not doing that. I feel like it is fascinating to me that you can have a picture of someone's body and be like, that person is somewhere in this room.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have their head at all, just their body. And you're like, yeah, that person's 3 feet away. It could be, anyone around us. I'm just like, fascinating.
It is fascinating to go to bigger cities than Austin, where you just have that density that we just don't really have here. And like the profiles in your radius, it's like, if you're in New York in particular, like go to like a central part of like Manhattan or Brooklyn or Queens, and suddenly everyone is within like 20 feet of you that you can see within the grid.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It really is. And I think because of that, within the queer community, dating apps aren't really ever going to die. And like, look at Lex, for example. Lex isn't like really big here in Austin, but one of my best friends lives in Denver, and Lex is huge there. Like every femme, every non-binary lesbian that is in the Rocky Mountains is using Lex. The thing with Lex is like you create an ad and it's up there for 24 hours. And I really want Austin to like get active with this, but I'm just not part of the demographic. So like I can only just, like pine from the side. But I guess there was like something where people were creating ads responding to other people's ads. Like, oh, I know more about this story. And if you DM me, I'll tell you all about it.
What?
Like we have moved beyond just romantic connection. Like Bumble BFF was only the beginning.
We have surpassed it. So let's say it's a Saturday night, Friday night, Saturday night, actually, whatever night that you go out.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a single queer person in Austin, where do you spend your Saturday, Friday nights to meet others?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. I think if you are, femme or non-binary, you're probably hanging out at Cheer Up Charlie's. If you are, someone who really loves drag, you're probably on 4th Street. If you're Gen Z or just, kind of wild and fun, you might be at Coconut Club or Neon Grotto.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something a little more aggressive or, just not super mainstream, you're probably at the Eagle.
What's the Eagle?
The Eagle is a new bar. So it's an extension of the Eagle that is in a multitude of other cities. And it's sort of like a S&M style bar where there's a little bit more of, a kink forward community that is
nice.
Yeah. But the Eagle in Austin is in sort of like a weird location. And I haven't been to it yet. I've been meaning to check it out. It seems like they have some cool programming there, but it's just sort of in like a random strip mall.
Oh, okay.
And it definitely makes me yearn for like the glory days of BT2, where you could have that sort of like alternative experience.
Why can't we have BT2?
Yeah, just bring it back. Okay, bring it back.
Serious shout out to BT2. RIP. I mean, like just
RIP.
Every gay person, everybody getting sweaty on the dance floor, slipping and falling on concrete.
Using those old ketchup and mustard door handles from when it was a Fuddruckers.
Yes. Oh my God.
One of the most flattering things that's ever happened to me is that I was at BT2 and I had a friend who had never gone to a drag show before. And I was like, oh, I think this is the right one for you. Like, it's pretty, entry level, very like, there's no barrier to entry at BT2.
Right.
And so I go into the restroom and there's this older guy who approaches me and he genuinely thought that I was an escort who was there with a client. And he was like, yeah, what's your rate? I'd love to book some time with you. And I was like, can we just like time out real quick? I need to like Google what my rate should be. And then I'll get back to you.
Can I text my friend really quick?
Yeah. You think that like multiple people will pay lots of money to have sex with me? Okay, great. Yeah, let's continue talking.
Oh my God, I miss BT2. Oh my God.
Yeah, bring it back. God. We need something that, people from Pflugerville can like pop into. They don't need to go all the way into the city limits.
And About Time 2 is north, like off of the frontage road of North 35, right before you get to St. John's.
Yep.
So over back by where the Papacitos and the Papados and the Double Tree, please, somebody with a lot of money, bring it back,
bring
please.
it back. Also,
for the love of God.
just like, I'd love for Chain Drive to come back just for like one night a year. You know, I don't think we could handle any more than that. But that was one of the first gay bars that I went to in Austin. And I mean, I was like a textbook twink back in the day. Not that I'm not now, but like when I was, you know, like 19, like, yes, absolutely. And I remember going to that place for the first time and everyone in the bar woofed at me.
Oh my God. How do we explain where Chain Drive used to be?
Just north of Rainey, but south of Cesar Chavez.
There it is. North of Rainey.
Next to Waller Creek.
Yeah. North of Rainey, south of Cesar Chavez.
Yeah, because it was just some like empty space that was behind where the horse stables used to be. So it always smelled like horse shit.
Right.
And I think that's why it was
so disgusting.
Allowed to be as disgusting as it was.
When I was younger, I went to Charlie's. I went to Charlie's forever. And the first time I went to Chain Drive, and I was like, oh, okay, this is not for me. Everybody's very friendly. Everybody's very nice. But clearly, I am not the demographic. But then secondly, the second thing that happened to me was for the first time in my life, and this is weird, but like for the first time in my life, I saw like a bear, like just like a big burly lumberjack, because in my head, all gay men were tiny, wispy, like twinks. And so when I saw this huge bear, and I was like, oh, I have to talk to this person. I need to know what's happening. Because it just completely opened up my very narrow view of queerness and gayness. And like that man, I wish I could remember his name. That man sat at the table with me and had a whole conversation and explained so many things to me, most of which I probably did not need to know, but he took the time to explain in great detail.
He walked you through it all.
He walked me through it all. And I just sat there with my like Long Island iced tea, just like eyes wide open, taking it all in. Oh my God. Oh my God. So last question. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I think if we had this conversation a year ago, I probably would have been very negative and I might have been not super optimistic about what's going on here. But I feel like over the last year in particular, I've just gotten to know a lot of people. And I've also gotten to know people that I already knew, but I've gotten to know them better in ways that have really affirmed the way that the city is going and how curious and explorative people are when it comes to defining what works for them. And I think that's really cool to see. And I hope that that trend only continues to grow from here.
Oh man, I love this city. Thank you for being here with me and having this conversation. This is great. Oh my God, I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Mace's social media in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.